Here are your notes on forces on the IP side of your notebook. The essential question is, what makes an object change its motion? Another word for changing its motion is accelerate. And then ultimately we want to take the answer to this question and talk about how this applies to galaxies and gravity. You're going to need a highlighter because you're going to highlight vocabulary, definitions, and facts. Or maybe you can even circle definitions and facts, but you definitely need important things highlighted in your notes. Here's a force. A force is an interaction between two or more objects, resulting in a push or a pull, meaning the object gets pushed or pulled. And two examples of forces, one example is gravity, another example is magnetism. You can use a magnet to push or pull an object. A force is considered a vector because it has size and direction. A vector is anything that has size and direction. Some people call this magnitude and direction. Magnitude and size is the same thing. And because a force is a vector, it can be represented with arrows. The arrow shows the size of the force, whether it's large or small, and it shows the direction that the force is acting. For example, the force of gravity can be shown as a vector. We're showing in this picture with the arrow that the force of gravity pulls toward the center of the earth, and it's a fairly large force. You also have a force of gravity, but it's a much smaller force, and it's pulling in the opposite direction. So these vector arrows are showing the size and direction of the force. The unit for force is the Newton, named after Sir Isaac Newton, the one who really came up with all the ideas about forces. One Newton of force is about the amount of a force of a small apple that it puts on your hand as you were to hold it. If you were to hold a small apple, you would feel its weight pulling down, but it's a very small force. Forces are balanced if they are equal in size and opposite in direction. For example, if we have a box and this force is pushing this direction with a force of 10 newtons, and this force is pushing this direction with a force of 10 newtons, they are equal size, but one's going to the right and one's going to the left. They're going opposite directions. Balanced forces do not change the motion of an object. So if we're going to be talking about what changes the motion of an object, you need to know that balance forces do not change the motion of an object. This box is not going to go anywhere if somebody with a force of 10 newtons and 10 newtons is pushing against it in the opposite direction. It's the unbalanced forces that affects the motion of an object. For example, if only one person is pushing on the box with a force of 10 newtons and there's nothing on the opposite side, then the forces are said to be unbalanced if there is more force acting on an object from one side than another. Unbalanced forces cause an object to accelerate. Since there is more force on this side, this object will accelerate to the right. Going back to this picture that we looked at gravity, these vectors are showing that the forces of gravity from the Earth compared to yours are unbalanced forces, which is why if the force of gravity is pulling on you and you don't have anything under your feet, you're going to fall straight down to the earth. Now there are two types of forces. Forces can be said to come in two types. They can be contact and non-contact forces. A contact force requires two objects to physically touch one another, like if you physically push on something to make it move. Another type of force is a non-contact force, where forces do not require touching in order for the forces to act or make the object move, like magnets. Magnets can be a force that make an object move without touching it. Here's some vocabulary terms you need to go back through your notes and make sure that you have. Stop and think about the notes, going back through and highlighting important things, facts, and definitions. At the bottom of your paper, write a summary about your notes. Here's an example summary to help you. You can use this or you can write your own summary. Just remember to highlight and number your periods.